tell us, this film is different from the other Disney animation movies.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the concept.
Well, I suppose that was our ambition when we started out. We thought we had been to use a Disneyland metaphor, we've been to Fantasyland a lot, and we've done a lot of wonderful fairy tales and musicals, which we will always do. But we thought, let's go to the end of Main Street and turn left and go to Adventureland this time. And the more we looked, the more we found, you know, Walt Disney's films were very much like this. Films like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Swiss Family Robinson. And we thought, let's do that in animation. It could be really fun.
Talking about 20,000 Leagues, the story is a little bit about the same kind of tour that 20,000 Leagues takes.
Yeah.
How did the story, why do you want it to do Atlantis?
Well, we love the idea of Atlantis as a story because, first of all, you can walk out in the street and everybody kind of knows about the title of Atlantis. Everybody knows there was this lost continent and these people who had it worked out. And we also felt like it was a great chance to create a new mythology, almost a new civilization. Architecturally, we wrote a language for Atlantis. And a great chance to tell a story not just about the Atlanteans, but about explorers in our modern age, or in 1914 in our case, who set off to find Atlantis. And in the end, it's a movie about legacy. It's a movie about living up to the expectations of your ancestors and about giving gifts to our children and that kind of thing. So,
you mentioned that you had a language down for the movie. Tell us a little bit about why you wanted to have that instead of just something different, and also about the architecture of Atlantis. It's also different.
It is, yeah. When we first started thinking about Atlantis, we thought, well, we didn't want to do, we'd seen Greek and Roman columns a lot for Atlantis, and we didn't want to get there and everybody was speaking English because that seemed like, it doesn't work. We thought, let's use more of a mother civilization metaphor. Let's make Atlantis like the Tower of Babel. It's like the mother culture from whence every other culture came. So we wanted to do that architecturally, so we pulled in architectural symbols from Cambodia and Mayan architecture and Egyptian architecture and put those all into the architecture of Atlantis. But we also wanted a spoken dialect, so we found a guy named Mark Okrand who wrote the Klingon and Vulcan dialogue for Star Trek. We thought, how cool is that? So we got him in and he helped us develop a dialect for our actors to speak Atlantean in the film. That helped create that sense of civilization and culture that Atlantis really did exist.
What were some of the challenges that you have encountered from the beginning, from when the three of you sat together and decided to do this?
Well, a great deal of indigestion, first of all. Well, the biggest challenge, I suppose, is you have 400 or 500 people over 4 years, and to marshal all those people together and try to help them make the same movie is like, you know, herding cats or passing out 400 paintbrushes and asking everybody to paint one picture. So that was probably the biggest challenge. The other challenge is these movies are highly technical and highly technological in their conceit. And so trying to get people who are used to drawing with pencil on paper, which there is a lot of in this film, to work with people who work with keyboards and mouses and computers to create this hybrid film was probably one of the biggest challenges, and make it all look like it came from the same hand, and ultimately make the audience forget that they're looking at all that and they're just getting engrossed in the story.
Right, that was one of my questions in terms of mixing together everything and the 3D and the computer animation.
Right.
How difficult with all these people, as you said?
Well, it's, you can imagine, because we run into it in our everyday life. You find people that are very comfortable with a computer and people that still work on an old typewriter or, you know, with a legal pad and a pencil. And that's very much what happens in an animation studio. You have people that love working with pencil and paper and people that love working on a computer. And so my job is to help all those people play well together. This movie had to play well together because it relies on the best of technology and the best of wonderful traditional Disney animation to make it work. And that was our goal. That was the toughest part about the movie, really.
This movie is done in CinemaScope.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about why you chose to do it this way and what it involves, because being a wider screen, everything has to be...
Well, a traditional film is shot in kind of a rectangle that's, you know, fairly common to all of us, but we wanted to make a movie that was just a little bit bigger, a CinemaScope widescreen movie, which has about 30% more screen area, because we felt like we wanted to take the audience with us. We like strap them in alongside the explorers and take them to Atlantis with that extra screen area. And to do that, that meant, you know, 30% more artwork and ambition and time to lavish that extra production up on the screen.
And it does really takes us into it, into Atlantis.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. By the time you get that extra screen area and then the score from James Newton Howard and the you know, Skywalker sound effects and all that. You feel like you're really in this world for an hour and a half, and that's what we wanted to do.
You mentioned before that it took 4 years.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about where do you start once you have your idea? You start with storyboards. How do you start into and what's kind of like a process?
In this case, we started with big margaritas and a big Mexican meal, and started, you know, talking about what's next. You know, I had collaborated with Kirk and Gary, the directors, before, and we said, you know, what kind of movies do you want to make? And Atlantis was a fascinating topic to us all. We loved action-adventure movies growing up. We said it seemed like a comfortable fit. In fact, one of the first inspirations was Journey to the Center of the Earth. We thought, well, maybe we can do that. But part of that book is they pass through Atlantis, and we thought, oh, that's really the interesting part. Let's just go and do a story about Atlantis.
How many teams working together? You know, there's all these different layers.
Yeah.
How many teams are involved into one scene, or just the whole?
Well, if you were to take one scene of the film, literally dozens of people touch that scene. You have story artists who sketch it out. You have an actor that comes in and performs it with other actors. Depending if there's 2 characters in the scene, you have 2 sets of animators working together. Each animator has assistant animators and follow-up people. Then colorists and painters take over and turn into color, and art directors that turn that into a color scene. And musicians come on, and sound effects artists, and lavish their kind of work on top of it. So you end up having, you know, 2-3 dozen people working on a scene that might last for 5 seconds on the screen.
And how long does that take? Does it take like a week of work, or is it like?
Well, to create the pencil animation for a 5-second scene might take a couple of weeks of work, and then to follow that through the process, through color and through the end, it might take a couple of months just to create that one little scene. There's one section of the movie where the submarine's attacked by the Leviathan, this big underwater sea creature. It took a couple years to create that, what amounts to about 4 minutes of film, because it was so highly technical.